Good evening, commissioners and ad hoc committee. Today we're going to talk about the Malibu Community Lands Project. We first spoke about this at the Parks and Recreation Commission in July, as well as the Public Works Commission in July. So today we're bringing everyone together to hopefully get a consensus on our next steps. So I have a few, maybe 30 slides to go through, which are a little bit of an overview of what the commission's talked about and just some feedback we've received since then. So we'll get started. To recap, today we are going to be talking about the Community Lands Project, of course, and this revolves around the strategic plan, goal number 7, exploring opportunities for educational, cultural, and recreation establishment, Community Lands Project. And as I mentioned earlier, the Public Works Commission and Parks and Recreation Commission reviewed these preliminary designs in July. And today we are looking to provide a recommendation for council consideration on the preferred or alternative plan for the Community Lands Project and the public-private land exchange. Next slide. To recap, in January 2026, council did provide direction on the Community Lands Project and requested that the Public Parks and Ad Hoc Committee work on the Aoki property for temporary fields, specifically for soccer fields. And the ad hoc committee and staff continue to work on the Heather Cliff project, which included the multi-generational recreation center, and we suspended work on the La Paz Parcel C property. And then directed staff to discuss potentially swapping lands with in the Civic Center area. Next slide. Some clarifications that I wanted to discuss prior to getting into the meat of this report. There is, and in response to what the commission requested to gather additional community feedback, we opened up a survey through August 31st at MalibuCommunityLands.org, so that is currently in process. And also on this website, it includes just historical information if anyone's interested in looking at that, and links to all the commission and council meetings, and then just the historical input we've received so far. And as a reminder, these designs are just the first draft. Nothing's set in concrete yet, and this is why we're going through this process, to make sure we're making the right decisions. And to also remind everyone that these designs came out of both the 2013 Parks and Recreation Master Plan and our community engagement that happened in 2025 and 2026. And funding has not been identified yet. So as we're going through this process of identifying what engineering and construction looks like, once those preliminary designs are approved, then we'll work with developing a budget and work with council on a financing plan. There were some questions and clarifications about parking. This land was purchased through Measure R and Measure M funding. So the city is required to put specific parking on the sites of the Aoki property, Triangle property, and Heather Cliff properties. Okay. So the Parks and Recreation Commission met on July 21st, and Public Works Commission met on July 22nd. Of this year, just last month, and just some important consensus items that came out of both commissions. It was important to recognize that recreational amenities were a consensus among both commissions. Preserving Malibu's natural elements, landscape, trees, and creating and maintaining native habitats was also important. And coming up with a sustainability and resiliency, and ensuring that both locations were safe to navigate, both ingress, egress, and traffic plans, and those sorts of things. Next slide. Okay, so the public-private concept, land exchange concept, both commissions did not support this land swap, and neither did the ad hoc commission or committee, so that is like, seems to be a consensus among this entire group. Concerning the Triangle property, both commissions were in favor of the general concept. They supported parking, a potential visitor center, or a kiosk, and everyone wanted to review the feasibility of a local trolley service. Additional support was for public art, native gardens, trees, and shade. And staff put together just suggested next steps. These are just options for the group to consider. So we were thinking to understand how the parking and trolley system would impact the circulation, including visitors, how visitors would safely travel in the Civic Center area, an understanding of the feasibility and operational model for the proposed trolley system, and an assessment district got brought up, and we just needed to do additional research regarding that. Moving on to the Aoki property, both commissions supported permanent sports playing fields or multi-purpose fields. Natural seating was also suggested. Everyone wants to maximize shade, and the existing trees on the property would definitely be protected. The discussion on the land for municipal uses, the tow yard and the maintenance yard, we wanted just some more information about that. And also some things that came up were options for a concession stand. We're going through the Bluffs Park Enhancement Project, which does include concessions, so that was something to consider. Additional sports storage, and then the feasibility of a pool facility. Regarding the commissions that had some difference in opinion, the Public Works Commission requested additional information regarding the impound lot, and if it could be a smaller size or placed at a different location. The Parks and Recreation Commission supported the idea of playing fields and the idea of these being multi-purpose spaces to hold special events. So it's not just soccer focused. These would be spaces that we could have in Malibu or have concerts in the park. We could potentially continue to use the site as a chiller cook-off. I think staff would be interested in offering senior outdoor activities there, parent and me program, adult sports came up, and of course emergency operations if that were to occur. The Parks and Recreation Commission did not support placing city yards or an impound lot at this space, and I think everyone across the board wanted pickleball or options. I wanted to provide additional information regarding the city yard and impound lot, so you can see why we came to maybe potentially adding this space on the Aoki property. Currently, the Public Works Department does not have a maintenance yard, and we rent space in the Civic Center area for maintenance. Parks as well, we are outgrowing our little space at Malibu Bus Park, and having a city yard, there are community benefits to it. We can purchase things in bulk and store them, which was reduced costs for the city. Just access to the site. It would be a cost-saving measure to reduce the public works costs for the yard in the Civic Center area, and it's, of course, a centralized location. Regarding the impound lot, currently we are only towing during the summer months here in the city of Malibu, and it only occurs in western Malibu. So with a tow yard at the site, towing would occur year-round throughout the entire city, not just in the western portion. And it also would improve public safety. There is potential revenue. The lower estimate is about $500,000 of revenue we would get per year, but we anticipate that would be a little bit higher than that. And just to be clear, this is not going to be an open, ugly space. We would use natural landscape as screening because we know that is important to make sure that there is some division between the playing fields and this space, and we would have a separate access point to make sure it was a safe facility. So we did do some research regarding the conditions at Aoki regarding the water table, And in 2012, there was a study completed. And as you can see, the groundwater levels at the southern end are 3 to 6 feet below existing ground level. So pretty short. And the deepest level at the northern end here closest to City Hall is about 23 feet. I think this came out of the request of the Public Works Commission to see if that was an option to add a pool at this site. But as with all city facilities, there are additional requirements if you were to put a pool at this site. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that LA County Health Department has requirements, such as locker rooms, showers. Obviously, we need a mechanical room to run the pool, just staff offices. So it would be quite costly as far as construction goes and staffing and ongoing maintenance. We took this image out of the 2012 study, and as you can see on the right-hand side, where all the little circles are, that is where the lowest point on the water table is, and then at the highest point is further towards the north, where it's closer to City Hall. And I just wanted to provide you once again with the oversight of the the design option at the Ioki property with 2 soccer fields, 100 parking spaces, which would be in the center, and then on the street side, walking path, and then the impound lot and maintenance yard on the far north. And staff put together the suggested next steps. We do have some data collecting for the impound yard and to review options to reduce the site or an alternative location. And with the pool being brought up quite frequently over the last couple weeks, maybe just doing some additional studies regarding that facility. Okay, on to the Heathercliff property. Commission supported a multi-generational recreation center. We did offer a 4-lane pool versus an 8-lane pool, and then 8 lanes was the preferred option, and the option to have additional sports field. There was consensus to enhance the surrounding habitat and maximizing native gardens and trees. And just here's a review of the site with the regulation size soccer field, parking structure, recreation center, and pool facility. The concerns regarding the Heathercliff property was facility access to the site. Both commissions requested that a traffic study be completed, and there was a suggestion about dedicated senior parking due to the senior center now being at this site. There was a strong consensus about the building design. I think everyone preferred a natural looking facility rather than this larger structure that was more architectural design focused. And sustainability and resiliency was also an important factor with solar solutions. And the question came up again and again about the library set-aside funds. So I'll talk about that for a little bit next. So staff did contact the supervisor's office and county library. The library is very interested in providing or suggesting a capital improvement project for the Civic Center area, and that's where their focus is on at the current moment, to revitalize the Civic Center area and provide a better library here in this area. The city and the county are looking to release a library feasibility study and needs assessment. If there could be a case, if people really wanted services on the western side of Malibu, the library would be open to a conversation about that. So the Heathercliff property suggested next steps to complete a traffic and circulation study, do continuous outreach in the Heathercliff neighborhood specifically and senior community, and then also to explore alternatives for a parking garage, maybe to reduce the size or height. And then my last little bit here in the presentation, I did want to provide everyone with information regarding community feedback we've received so far. So as I mentioned, there is a survey open till the end of the month at MalibuCommunityLands.org. As of August 6th, we had 66 responses. Today it's up to 86, so we've had 20 more since then. 62 of the respondents lived in the 90265 zip code. The highest percentage was from Western Malibu, who responded, and the highest age range that responded was 60 to 69. And so here's some charts regarding, all the questions were centered around, do you support? So for the Ioki property, overall concept, do you support it? The blue column is a yes, the orange column is a no, the green column is no answer. So for the overall concept, like 43 people supported the overall concept. Permanent playing fields, about 45, the maintenance yard, 41, impound yard, a little bit under 40, did support these facilities. For the Heathercliff property, the overall concept, a little bit more than 45 supported the overall concept. Everyone really liked the multi-generational center with a little bit over 50. The lap pool was 49, and outdoor amenities was even higher at 52, 53. And then the triangle lot property, the overall concept, these are a little bit more even. The overall concept at 30, the visitors serving building 32, and having a centralized transit system about 31. So our next steps, we will keep this survey open until the end of the month. And then we hope to gain consensus from this group on what the recommendation will be to City Council. And that meeting, we'll talk about community lands, will be September 28th, regular City Council meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you so much. I did want to remind people who are new here to, if you want to speak, to fill out public comment. Haven't done so already. Yeah, so public comments over there.
You haven't put in a slip yet.
What you need to do to speak. Because we'd love to hear from you. I see a lot of new faces, and I would love for you all to share your thoughts. Great, thank you. All right, so while they're doing that, So some of you know this is a huge passion project for me. It's one of the items that I ran for when I ran for City Council was community lands. So I am so excited to see the development of these things, the concepts that have come out, and the feedback that we've gotten from the community so far. I think it's been met with a lot of positivity and a lot of great suggestions and ideas to tweak. And so I think we're in a really good spot as a community that we've got this excitement. I attended both the Parks and Rec meeting and most of the Public Works meeting. And I'm just so excited and just want to keep moving this ball forward. So I'm here to listen, but mostly let's try and come to somewhat of a consensus so we can make a good suggestion to the full City Council and move this on to the next step. And I've got some questions for staff that I want just basic timelines, kind of knowing so we can educate the community on what to expect, both long-term and short-term of what's next. So. Thank you. All right, should we move to who has public? Oh yeah, go for it, City Manager Urban.
Sorry.
Great.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Riggins, your questions about what steps are next. As Kristen stated in her report, there is no identified funding for the project currently. What I think is really important for the city to do is finalize a conceptual plan that then will be baked into our capital improvement plan, which then means our public works engineers will start the 30%, 60%, and 90 to 100% design process. That's a process that we run through the city council through our annual budgets going forward. but we cannot do any of that until we have a conceptual plan. And once we have the conceptual plan and we start the design process, there's been a lot of comments about, well, there's a lot of people in town that have financial assets and that want to fundraise with us. That can be a part of this, but that is not what we should set forth to do from the beginning, in my opinion. What we need to do is work through this community-involved process, present options from the ad hoc committee to the city council to endorse the concepts we would like to see at Ioki and Heathercliff. Then it will bake its way into our CIP, like I said, and we will start to go through the permitting, the design permitting process. So it is a multi-year process, but this is a really critical point because the last thing we want is to start to see walls, earth being disrupted and walls being constructed where people say we had no voice at the table and we did not have the opportunity to be heard. And that is something I commit to, I know the two council members here commit to, and this is a great turnout. And I think the process has been really robust over the years. It's been interrupted with disasters, and that's a challenge that Malibu has had to deal with. We get momentum, and then we get pulled back. So from my perspective, albeit 6 months in town, Kristen's shared with me that we have moved a lot further this time. And so the momentum is really positive, and we're here to listen today with the ultimate goal of getting the council to really approve the concepts, not so much all the nitty-gritty design. That'll come out through the design phase of the engineering plans. So I just wanted to highlight that.
I think also, so people understand the coastal development permits that are going to be required for each of the properties, the EIRs that are going to be required for each of the properties, and kind of what those encompass also, the traffic studies, and, you know, I think also timing of maybe we are going to look at traffic studies earlier in some than maybe not. So, and I think that's one of the discussion items we'll have here. But I think just so that it's very transparent to the community exactly all the reviews that this is going to go through, what's the timeline for those so we can set realistic expectations for completion of various parts of this property. I don't think we're going to develop all of these at once. I think these are going to be legacy ideas and that hopefully future generations will build on and we'll be able to see for years to come.
If I may, I think that's a great suggestion, and what we can do after this is walk away and put some tentative timelines on the community lands page so people understand what future permits are required, what the estimated time frame for those is. That's a good suggestion, and we will do that.
Okay, great, thank you. So we are going to start our public comment, and we have Joe Drummond first, and then Ann Jones, and then Pat Healy.
Hi everyone. So as Eastern Malibu rebuilds after the Palisades fire, please look at the community lands as one integrated citywide plan balancing East, Central, and West Malibu instead of duplicating facilities we already have. At Ioki, please study a community pool of about 100 by 50 feet, 30 meters long. That is longer than the existing Malibu High community pool, but far smaller than a 50-meter Olympic-sized pool planned for Malibu High in 2028, funded through Measure MM by ourselves, Malibu property owners. This pool could serve masters and lap lessons, swimming, families, seniors, and rehab with a warm water therapy spa. Comparable Southern California public pools estimates suggest that a modest pool like this would cost $13 to $17 million, far less than a major Olympic-sized aquatic complex. It would also be important wildfire infrastructure with over 200,000 gallons available, with dedicated pumps and fire department connections. It could provide critical firefighting water in the center of town if municipal pressure fails. Please also study underground cisterns at the other city lots. Please do not use valuable civic center land for a tow yard. The current high school operation works. Much of the towing occurs near western beaches, and the commissions here already question whether it belongs at Ioki. At Heathercliff, create a low-profile Western Malibu library, education, cultural, and multi-generational community hub instead of duplicating indoor court facilities already available at the high school. Outdoor recreational courts can be created, of course. Please do not build a 2-story above-ground parking structure. Use surface parking or underground parking if feasible. The county library has indicated they may be open to library services at Heathercliff. We have $22 million, so let's work with that since the city has no money. With a combustible, fire-resilient design, Heathercliff could also serve as secondary EOC and fire safety hub with amphitheater for concerts, lectures, wildfire demonstrations, and community brigade training. And consider a worldwide design competition with a limited prize like the competition that produced the Sydney Opera House. Set Malibu's constraints up front and invite the best solution. This will save a ton of in-consulting costs alone. Keep soccer flexible, 2 fields at Ioki or 1 at each site. Let the triangle lot become a welcoming visitor trolley, parking garden, or public art hub. Finally, do not trade away or develop the Bell or Smith wetlands. Restore them, protect their buffers, and preserve this habitat for the birds and wildlife that depend on it. Please plan these lands once for recreation, education, wildfire resilience, and habitat restoration. Thank you.
Anne? Yes.
Okay, so I'm Ann Jones, and I'm a retired architect. I worked in Malibu for 30 years in architecture, and I'm representing the Malibu Monarch Project today. And I think what I'm going to do is start with Heathercliff, a laser pointer and see if that works. I think you all know the property very well. You see PCH up on the right, and the photograph is taken from Port's Head. So next slide, please. Okay, so you have a copy of this in your packet, and I'm going to try to see if my pointer will work, which it does. So what we're saying is that we're going to delete the soccer field, or the game field, and we would like the pools to all go down to Ioki, which I think is what Joe was just saying. And what that leaves us with is this isn't working very well, a botanical garden and a native plant area and then a meadow. And in terms of building structure, what we were looking at was something very simple, and there would be a community building that would have a community center, an EOC, a kitchen, and potentially a library. That would be about 3,000 square feet. A makerspace, and that's actually the little white thing off to the very furthest right, near PCH, and that would have workshops, art studios, potentially storage, and then the little center square would be an office. I'm showing parking on grade at the upper left, which is where Fred Fisher had it, 1 basketball court, and then outdoor gym. And then we'd like to restore the entire slope area to native. And what I figure is that's about 7,900 square feet. Fred Fisher's project was 21,800. So in that sense, it will, cost less. I've got parking all along the fire road, and I was assuming that we need that because Fred had it. So, next slide, please, Brittany. Thank you. Okay, so here is just a very schematic building approach because people didn't necessarily like the Fisher idea. It seemed like too big, out of scale. I think the color was sort of unappealing for them. This is a more simple concept. It's a little bit more agricultural in a way, and the building materials would be hardy board, which is a cementatious fiber board, board form concrete, and then standing seam roof. And if you look up at the upper image, that's a section with PCH over on the left, and then a row of trees along PCH to mitigate sound, and then a road that would have, or I guess the fire road would have parallel parking on either side, and then a berm that would also mitigate sound. My time's up.
I'm sorry, yes.
Oh, no.
But we all
but you
have
know.
it, and well, we definitely have it in our packages.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate all of that. So up next, we have Pat Healy.
Hello everyone, I'm representing the Malibu Coalition for Slow Growth, and for those of you who don't know who we are, we were formed at the time of cityhood, and we are concerned with how, when, why, and where you build within the city. We're here to protect the residents from inappropriate development, and we're not against development and slow growth. That being said, slow growth has different opinions, so we gave 2 slides for each project. The first one is the IOP project, and you see the 2 soccer fields that we want. The same parking as laid out along Stewart Ranch Road in here to eliminate the tow yard and storage yard. You can pay $100,000 for storage off-site. It doesn't belong on a city park. And this is for the pool, and we could just transfer the pool for another clip down here if that's what they want to decide. And the next slide, please. The next slide just shows the site without the pool and just public open space and walking trails, and moving the parking down to Civic Central Way, which will result in less impact on Stewart Ranch Road. We'll keep the Stewart Ranch Road parking, and that's the only difference, really. Everything else, we want a lot of open space and trails everywhere. Okay, next slide, please. This is the Heathercliff property, and we support the elimination of the gym. That would leave a 3,000 square foot community center. And we didn't get into the details that should go in there because it might change over time, but we do support the emergency center there as well as in the civic center. The first slide has the parking along PCH and where the parking lot was, or parking structure was, where we want that eliminated. That's not part of what Malibu is. Also, on eliminate the multi-purpose field. It's not needed. It's at the most part, and put in a botanical garden and wildlife garden in there. And of course, we want everything screened from PCH to protect the visual impacts of the park, and of course, the sound and the vision. Next slide, please. This is very similar, except the parking structure is underground, 1 story underground, and the rest is covered with natural natural open space and plants. And we are open, of course, and we discuss the possibility of having the amenities on top of that instead of the open space there.
Pat,
Yes,
that's your time.
my time's up.
But
Okay.
we have 2 renderings, and I'm really impressed. Thank you. They're really, we all have them. So Scott Talal, you're up.
Just wanted to talk about first Heathercliff because 1 in every 12 people in Malibu lives in Point Doom Club. We have no sidewalk between Point Doom Club and the shopping center. The only way for the 800 residents of Point Doom Club to get to the new facility and to the shopping center is to walk in the middle of the street. And it's not exactly the safest option for us. So as a part of this, we hope that the city will at least recognize the need for sidewalks to and from Point Doom Club. There are also no sidewalks on Wandamere. However, Wandamere has very, very little traffic, foot or vehicle traffic, but that's definitely something we'd like you to consider. As far as the IOP lot, I would strongly recommend that you add 1 more item to your consideration of this property, and that is a full geologic survey, not just geohydrology. We've actually my company has worked on the IOP lot. Back after COVID, after we were all coming out of COVID, with the city's support, we did some drive-in movies using a giant inflatable screen that was over 1,000 square feet of surface. When you have that kind of wind resistance that you're dealing with, you have to anchor it, because the last thing we want is a 52-foot wide screen sailing on the PCH. What we discovered in the process is that bedrock is at grade almost throughout the entire Aoki lot. This is going to make construction of anything extremely difficult because we don't know how deep it goes. We don't know how much you're going to have to dig down. If you're going to have playing fields, depending on how deep you dig underneath that, you're going to have kids falling on grass that's basically on grade or on artificial grass that's basically on grade. So please take a look at that. The only other thing, since it's on your, it's not on today's agenda, but it's under your purview, is to please allow the Arts Commission to resume conversations on Parcel C, because we cannot come up with a budget. And we can't do that until we talk to the Arts Commission. So we encourage you to encourage council members to, your fellow council members, to put that back, take it from the table so that we can get that discussed and then deliver exactly the proposal that you've asked us to present to the Film Society.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. That's Merrill Mays up next, and then Ed Niles, and then Louise Green.
Thank you very much. I had the opportunity to give young ladies there a list that was prepared about 18 years ago between myself and the Parenchio family. I have 37 years of planning experience at USC. And you're going ass backwards. I think your city council or anybody knows that there are critical paths that we have to understand. It's important that we find out where we get the money. That should be over here. Whatever the device is. The next thing is there was a plan done 8 years ago, 10 years ago, but the critical path of that plan was simply provide a circulation system for the families. It was critical that you had that. Why? Because it reduces the parking. It reduces the accidents. These young people today, I go to the market, over pavilions, I have to dodge every young guy in either an electric or some vehicle that's moving his body at 90 miles an hour. So part of the critical path is you need that as part of the implement. When I did the work for Parenchio, he felt there were many things that needed culturally to be added. And I'm not going to repeat everything, but the key thing wasn't just fields or athletics. There needed to be a great exhibition area for painting, for visiting sculptures, for visiting people to come in, so that everybody in this community began to see beyond themselves. The other big thing was that we, a long time ago, I say a long time ago because it's taken years to get people to understand, we had in process a giant physical model of Malibu, of the mountains, going all the way through into the sea for a distance of 1,000 feet, so that every child here began to understand, and I include those people that want to act like a child, to begin to understand the reality of what we're up against with everything, topography, slides, so on. The Aoki site, I spent nearly 8 years with them on that site. We developed all kinds of options, but the big option there was we had housing. We had mixed use. We had 20 apartment houses, some retail. The idea there was to go back to the beginning again. It has to be self-supporting. Whether the idea is acceptable or not, I don't care. But unless you have the money from some source, you're not going to go anywhere. But the key thing was that the site in my car outside are 6 volumes of geology soil. So you would not believe what we went through, including the fact, as indicated in La Paz, it's a flood zone. Okay? And so every elevation, everything you do is subject to that. And whether the bedrock is right below us, 10 feet down, that all is accumulation of dollars in relationship to what you do.
That's your time.
Oh,
But
sorry.
I'm very interested in this life-size model, so maybe I'll reach out to you about it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Okay, well, good luck.
Thank you. Meryl May?
Hello, my name is Merrill May. I'm a little bit behind on a lot of these projects, although I've experienced the areas for many years. First, I want to follow Paul about sidewalks. And I'd like to again ask for sidewalk going from Civic Center up to the City Hall so that everybody doesn't have to walk in the street. A little DG on the one side, grading it down would help. That, I like the underground parking structure possibly. I've talked to some people and they don't want to see a parking structure down there. So,
Okay, good luck with that.
working with, so that it doesn't have a negative impact on view. Also, whatever on any of these sites need to be done is to have sidewalks, but also have the traffic be as safe as it can into the site and out of the site. I work a lot on roads and shoulders and sidewalks, and this is something that we can manage and construct in these areas, I would think. Pools, I've talked to a couple of people today. One person is a serious swimmer. He tells me a 25-meter pool or a 100-meter pool. If you have 100, you can split it sometimes if people want to. There's some kind of wall you can move there. But he says that you need to have like 8 lanes. 4 lanes is no good because people go to swim. You've got to have enough lanes. So 25 or 100 long, but you need to have at least 8 wide. I guess that covers most of it. I'll try to pay more attention to this stuff going forward. Thank you for doing that.
Thanks, Meryl. Louise? And then after Louise, we have Paul Brisanti. And then after that, we have Marian Czar. You can lower it.
I didn't really prepare anything to present. I'm really here with questions. I have to apologize. I have not gone to the MalibuCommunityLands.org, so I'm behind here. No. In fact, my question was: is the triangle the thing right up here, right up the road, across from Pepperdine?
Yeah.
Good. I thought that was
It's like right up at PCH across.
PCH,
right.
Malibu Canyon,
No.
Civic Center. That's not it.
It's the middle picture up there.
Yeah, but I was trying
Across
to figure
from
out where it
Ralph's?
was.
It's across from Ralph's. That's
It's not all the way
that's
down
where
to
Subway
Malibu.
is across the street.
Malibu Canyon.
No.
Oh, I thought that was it. Okay. All right. So I have the wrong location. And a couple of questions. Is the pool at the high school available to the public? And how big is it?
Great question. I think we'll get to that. We'll ask
Because I'm wondering, do we really need a second pool? Would enough people use another pool if we already have it available? And when would they use it? Because if it's an outdoor pool, are they going to use it in winter? You know, it's not real warm in winter time. So I'm just wondering if it's worth it to have a second pool. And the other thing that I really would like is bocce ball. Bocce ball. I know, it's a senior center. Bocce ball is so much fun. And we were thinking that maybe it could be put behind the city hall where the cement is. Yeah, that's another question we have. One other thing, and now I've forgotten what it was. Yes, I'm finished.
Thank you so much, Louise. I can help you figure out how to navigate the website.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Paul?
I am Paulo Grisanti, and I hate to see what I've seen happen before, which is we get so many things on the table, we accomplish nothing. And I think it's important that you look for something that's accomplishable, like the Ioki parcel and putting 2 fields on that, and leave the back portion of it until people can fight over what's going to be on the back portion. But those 2 fields could go in pretty quickly. Many years ago, we had volunteers, contractors who built where the baseball fields are now. And it was redone again 15 years later, but it lasted pretty well. And basically all you need to do is get 2 fields roughly level. And as far as worrying about what's underneath it, the entire delta we're standing on was the delta of the river that flowed to the ocean. And so there's cobbles everywhere, big rocks. So if you're going to construct things that are underground, depend on it being difficult. So, and just some fields would be great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Marion? Yeah.
Marion, then Linda Gibbs, and then Carl Randall.
Hi, everyone. I'm the CEO of the Palisades Malibu Chamber of Commerce, and I just wanted to speak about the Triangle lot. Some of the things that I know are going to come up are, issues around, there's a suggestion that there might be a building there. That building might be a visitor center or something that gives a nod to the history of Malibu. I just wanted to say that arises because the Chamber would like to be a partner in developing this parcel. And so some of the money to develop it would come from the Chamber. The other thing to note for you all as you consider this is that there might actually be public money for the development of that land. I know that you have to use much of it for mobility or parking purposes, but we've spoken to the congressman, and every year there's an omnibus bill that actually has money for these local projects. And so we might be able to get money from the omnibus bill for the surfacing of a parking lot. Depending on the administration, you can get other things too, but we've been able to establish that at the very least we can get. And then, the Chamber is happy to be a partner to develop this. So I hope the conversation continues, and we're here to work with you guys to create something great out of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Gibbs?
Hello, thank you so much for inviting us to speak. I have no slides, but because I was just told about this, but I'm going to speak for the water because I very much like fire resilience, and water is so important. So in my world, it's about slow it, spread it, sink it, try to keep it in the ground, try not to let the water leave the property at all. So what I'm thinking about is the Heathercliff property, because I believe my gully on Doom Drive connects to that property. And that's the way that the fire came to my house, was through that gully and then up into our property. And so whatever projects that you do, they all sound really wonderful, by the way, everybody, is to really consider, how do you keep every drop of rain? How do you keep as much water as possible infiltrated into the ground? So that's very different than most city planning, is how to get it away from the building as fast as possible and get it to the ocean. And we end up losing a lot of water. We pollute the ocean a lot that way. So there are lots of companies now that are really looking at how to take each property as its own watershed and try to mitigate that water leaving that property. Then we hold more water in the ground. The next thing is, we also need a collaboration with the soil food web. That means a complete biology in the soil, because then it aggregates the soil particles and then we can hold more water. So just consider those things and all up front of all the planning.
Thank you, Linda. Carl?
First thing I want to say is congratulations on getting this far. It's amazing. We've been through this for 35 years. I did it with Kristen from 2012 to 2017. We accomplished nothing, eventually. A bunch of people tried it in 97. They didn't get anywhere, ended nothing. So if you look back at our master plan from 1991, we became a city. There was suggestions for all these things we needed for amenities, for recreation. Other than the skate park, which is amazing, we have accomplished none of them. Literally none of them. You have some great opportunities. I won't really say much about what should be here or there. Great plan you guys have laid out. The piece that was attractive to me is you guys have 2 fields at Aoki, and not a soul's complaining about that. Joe, and find the funding and put those on the ground. Figure out the rest of the stuff going forward. I know Jane has some great ideas how you can fund the pool going forward. She's been through this. You guys will figure that out. You do have a backup plan if you do manage to get the 3rd field at Heathercliff. You have the multi-purpose field at Bluffs. Depending on what you guys get from the EIR and the ingress, egress, with the traffic plan, that is another option for you. But otherwise, this is fantastic, and congratulations on being here. Help kids.
Thanks, Carl. All right, that's it for public comment. Oh yeah, what's it? Generally no, but gosh, I'd love to hear it. So let's hear it, Louise. And we are recording this, right? Okay, great. Sorry, everybody.
There may be other people that are wondering about this. What is going on with the old courthouse?
Okay.
The courthouse.
Got it. Thank you. We'll try to get you an answer to that. So, we all want to know. We've been working on it with city manager. The courthouse is joint ownership with the state and the court system. Marion's been helping with that. The county, it's not ours. The state has to release it, and we all want it, and we all have ideas for that area if they do. So if there were public speakers, open the floor for public comment. We did that after the public speaker. Close the floor. Okay, floor is now closed, and we're gonna move on. So, what do we do?
Do you want to have the commissions to have a chance to
Great.
apply on their stuff? Who are we flipping a coin? Which one's going first? Anyone wants to go first?
Judy does not want to. I'm gonna go this way. You go first, please. Sorry. Thanks.
Well, first of all, thank you for the public comments. And I want to add that our commission and Parks and Recs as well, we received a lot of emailed comments. They've all been read, highlighted, starred. And related to public comments, I do want to point out the level of effort that went into, generating plans and maps and visuals, and just very impressive and extremely helpful. So I'm Kevin Keegan. I'm serving as the chairman of the Public Works Commission, and we did have an opportunity to go through this. You've seen some of our recommendations in the report. I wanted to start. I have a few guiding standards that I want to suggest. I have 2 ideas and a question to end with. But I wanted to point out that the staff started today's presentation by sharing with you from the strategic plan, goal number 7 is explore the new opportunities for educational, cultural, and recreational establishments. That relates directly to the community lands plan. And I start there because I appreciate, first of all, the staff integrating that already. But in terms of the guiding standards that I'd like to propose, I think it would be really helpful moving forward if we start from the vision and mission statement of the City of Malibu and include that in the presentations. And I mention that because in so many of the public comments that I've received, people go back to the vision statement and how can we ground these projects in the vision statement. And in the vision statement, somebody shared with me, reminded me that the quote is to preserve the unaltered natural resources and rural characteristics.
Commissioner Keegan, Chair. I think what I would like to do, because I think that's brilliant and wonderful, let's set parameters with regards to each commission gets a certain amount of time. So like rules of engagement.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So let's do there's 3 of you, 4 of you, and 5 of you. Let's give you guys, I don't know, how should we do this? 20 minutes to talk about this within you guys'. Does that sound good? And I think you guys get the same.
Yeah.
And so that would mean that 5 minutes per commissioner. Is that okay?
Yeah. Absolutely.
How do you feel about that?
Sounds great.
Great. I set a timer and we will begin. Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you, that's a good idea. The guiding standards, so starting with the vision and mission statement, preserve the unaltered natural resources and rural characteristics. And I point that out because I don't think I've heard rural characteristics mentioned or really emphasized. And I think it would be wonderful
if in the design for each lot, that really stands out and is in the forefront. From the second guiding standard is to ground it in the strategic plan, which we've done. And then number 3, prioritize environmental health and sustainability. Number 4, feature native plants and trees. And I say that because that comes through so often in the public comments. Preserve native plants and trees or plant new ones. Number 5, leverage resiliency. And that goes to the ideas around water that have been shared. Number 6, celebrate Malibu's history and culture. Number 7, honor the Chumash heritage. 8, focus on a multi-generational use of the lands at all 3 locations. And I mention that because in the initial proposal, the Aoki lot was really more youth-focused, which many were a little bit upset. But I think we've made some adjustments. Now it's more multi-generational. And then parking. Propose parking as it meets the legal requirements and designed with environmental and the aesthetic beauty in mind. So those are some of the ideas for guiding standards. And then 2 ideas I wanted to put on the table. I'll get to my question and then I'll wrap up. One idea that's come out of the public comments is, in addition to potentially a botanical garden, is a rose garden. I've lived in several places where there are rose gardens, and it not only does it beautify the environment, but it's really inspirational to visit and experience. The second idea, and that came from Sharon, with someone who shared some comments, and that really inspired me. Second idea comes from something Joe said, which is to consider the continuity of native plants and flowers at all 3 locations. I think that's a way to think about this holistically as a system, as Joe said. So those are some guiding standards, a couple of ideas to put on the table, and then to finish, the question I wanted to ask relates to comments that Paul and Carl made, which is, can we install temporary soccer fields at the Aoki lot? Can that be part of our commission's proposal as we leave here today? Thank you.
Okay, great. So I will say we started with temporary soccer fields. That's how this whole thing started, and it turned out financially kind of the same, permanent soccer fields made more sense fiscally. Does that answer your question? We did, the staff looked into temporary, and it was, why do temporary if you could do permanent?
Just again, if there's any way for there to be temporary fields so that we don't have to wait 3 or 4 years, that's all.
Okay.
And then
I'll just speak really loud for a minute. We analyzed the temporary with Fred Fisher, and the estimate for temporary was still about $3 million.
Right.
And so that was the reason that it was like, that's an expensive temporary fix.
Yeah.
So.
And I think this is great. I think having these questions and then having them answered in a nice format, so we just have it done. And then also I want to just put it out there that no matter what, I believe we talk about this quite often. We will have native plants. We will think about shade. We will think we have this beautiful Nelson or Walt's book. Thank you, Peter, for bringing it. Architecture, it's forefront of our minds to protect trees, to have monarchs, to think about all of our environment. So I believe that, water is, of course, something that we're very interested in. Entrapment water, being resilient, using fire, hardy board, concrete where we can, meaning wood. Tiffany and I talk about this. So I just want to make sure that we put that out there. We have very much, we're all in agreement. I think that's something that Marianne and I, as the ad hoc and staff, are always thinking about. We don't have to repeat that. Tiffany, Commissioner Murray, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. I probably
Apologize if I repeat some of what Chair Keegan was mentioning, but first I want to thank the Community Services Director for incorporating some of our previous comments in the last Commissioners meeting. I really appreciate that. And I think before moving into a checklist of amenities, parking spaces, and so forth, that I would prefer to pause and ask ourselves what becomes possible when we approach these lands with the right intention, with care, humility, and respect for the land itself. Because I believe these community lands are an extraordinary opportunity for Malibu. Fortunately, we don't have to invent the intention. Our founders gave us a remarkable gift. They took the time to articulate a vision and mission for Malibu that tells us what we are here to protect. Chair Keegan and I are aligned in keeping Malibu's mission statement front and center. And one section of it that really calls out to me is the physical and biological integrity of our environment, preserving our natural and cultural resources, maintaining the rural character by avoiding suburbanization and commercialization of its natural and cultural resources. It reminds us that recreation should remain subordinate to its natural, cultural, and rural setting. The map is quite clear. We just have to remember to use it. So before we decide what goes where, I would love for us to think about the experience we are creating. The majestic tree canopy, gardens, native plant and nursery, water, wildlife, quiet, gathering. And I recently had the opportunity to walk part of the Heathercliff property with a renowned soil health specialist, and it was a wonderful reminder that before we draw lines on a plan, we need to understand the living systems already at work beneath our feet, particularly how soil and water move through the property. There are people who actually specialize in understanding how soil and water move across a property, and I think we should consider bringing that expertise into the design from the very beginning rather than treating drainage as an engineering problem that gets solved at the very end. Because soil regulates hydrology, and hydrology is part of both the larger water cycle and the smaller local water cycle that helps create the microclimate around us. How do we capture water? How do we slow it down? How do we allow it to infiltrate the land rather than simply sending it away? At Heathercliff, for example, there's a stream that carries water through the property and ultimately towards the ocean. What if rather than simply accelerating the water through the property, we thoughtfully slowed it using a series of naturalized pools or basins, allowing one to overflow into another, capturing the water and using it to support the trees and living landscape we want to establish? This isn't just water management. That's designing a landscape that is cooler, more hydrated, and more resilient. And then imagine what happens when the landscape becomes part of community life. What if we design places where children could explore a vegetable garden and learn where their food comes from, where local farmers could share what they know, where a community kitchen could become a place for cooking classes, perhaps even inviting local chefs to teach a favorite recipe? What if the botanical garden assistant city manager Smith suggested it became a living classroom showcasing California native, drought-tolerant, and fire-resistant plants, and plants that have long been embraced by the Chumash? What if there were places for elders to sit beneath the canopy, for musicians and artists to bring people together, for recreation and learning to coexist with nature, and also simply places to be quiet? Because I don't think the goal is to create another collection of amenities. The goal is to create a place that people feel connected to, a place that feels like a refuge, a sanctuary, a place that is distinctly and unmistakably Malibu. And perhaps the question we should keep coming back to is, what would make someone want to return? Not because they have to, but because of how they feel when they're here. If we get the intention right, I believe the design will follow. So how do we formally address these questions before we proceed too far into the design requirements? How do we make sure the canopy, water, habitat gathering, learning, stewardship, and the sense of refuge aren't things that we try to add at the end, but are actually part of the foundation from which we design? Because years from now, people may not remember how many rooms or parking spaces we built, but I hope they will remember how it felt to be there. And I hope they know that we created something worth caring for. Thank you.
Tough act to follow.
I'm gonna set my timer too,
Okay.
just so that you don't have to harass me, Helen.
No problem.
Wow, I love how many people in this community know their water tables and their geology. And, you know, you don't find that in Glendale. So a lot of quick thoughts. I thank everybody who has sent us emails and who's shown up here today. I love how much this community loves this community. This is a community of dreamers, and dreamers always they dream and then they run into the money wall. How am I going to finance my play, my movie, my exhibition? And so I would say to Mr. Niles' point, we really do need to wrap our heads very realistically around how do we pay for this immediately, and how do we make it pay for itself on an ongoing basis. There's a lot of maintenance involved in this. And we want to make sure that we don't end up with what's happened to the trees on San Vicente and Santa Monica, which, for those who haven't followed, is a massive tragedy. You got to maintain your beauty. So that being said, when I was growing up here, we didn't have anything like this. And you venture to Palisades, to Santa Monica, to other places to find those spaces. And I would have killed as a kid to have some of these projects that would have kept me in the community, bonded the community together. There is not a small number of us here in these two commissions, and including our two city council members, who are deeply involved in the schools and getting our unification underway. I want to make a very strong point that good schools bring people and grow the schools community. These amenities will work hand in hand with that. So we have to think very seriously about how will these serve not just the people who live here now, but the future communities, the future families, the kids that are going to come here in the future. Central Park in New York is going to celebrate its 150th anniversary next year. The people who planned Central Park are long gone. The people who are enjoying what they planned are there today. I would like for all of these projects to be similarly celebrated in 150 years, when the people who live here, the families who are here, the kids who are in our schools, they look back and they thank us for having had the vision to give them something that wasn't just for people who are here now, but for the people who are going to live here for generations beyond, and preserve Malibu for generations beyond. I am concerned with parking. I hate parking, but there's never enough parking at Bluffs Park when there are games there. So that's a conundrum I think we have to figure out. I think that the polls that we've had for where people say, I love the plan or I don't, I'd rather see what they think of competing plans. Because when you give somebody the option of, do you love it or not, they're mostly going to love it. I think the fact that most people are really iffy on the Triangle lot is very telling. Triangle is like our local white elephant. Nobody quite knows what to do with it. And I think the plans could benefit from a lot more public input. I'd like to see something that's more green, that has less parking, that's more of a gateway to the community. It's a billboard for what you're going to see in Malibu. If you drive through Malibu and you look at that thing right now, you look over and you go, that's odd. I wonder what that's for. So it should be the opposite of that. I just don't like the idea of a tow yard or a maintenance yard. I'm sorry to everybody in Public Works. I know you guys need them, but I just can't see that on prime real estate in the middle of Malibu. It's not great for the community. Someone wise once opined to me that Malibu is a place where people come to hide. And it's a beautiful place to come to hide, but your homes and your estates here is typically where people live. And if you're in a city like New York, people reside in their homes, but they live in the community. We need more spaces like these to make people come out and mingle with their neighbors and meet the people that they otherwise just bump into at CVS or the post office. These are spaces to do that, and they're spaces that should focus on bringing our artistic community out, where you can put on a reading of poetry, or you can put on a play, or where you can exhibit your sculpture, or where you can exhibit your painting or your art or your photographs. All of that there should be a way for our artistic community to share that with the rest of the community and to bring people out. So I think an emphasis on that, being part of all of these. The last point I'll make quickly before I run out of time. I think of people like Jake Lingo, who have sometimes the conundrum of my one child is playing a soccer game and the other one is playing a soccer game. The soccer fields should, in my opinion, unless we really need that third field, I would say that keeping 2 fields close to bluffs is great for families with multiple kids. Because the worst thing in the world is when mom has to go with one kid to one game and dad has to go to another one and they're so far apart. So
Thanks,
I will
Wade.
just leave that. There we go.
Gonna harass you. I heard a recommendation, which is I heard the 2 parks, 2 soccer fields at the Bluffs. I mean at Aoki. Yeah. And no Junior. Got it.
Hi.
Hello.
I want to just say thank you for pushing this, both of you. I really appreciate that. From somebody that has kids and does things outside of Malibu for everything, which isn't fun. You know, I'm sitting on fields with other parents from other areas, and it's really nice to be involved in the community and get to know other people in the community. So I really like the idea of everything that everyone's thinking of to bring the community together. So you're swimming with people, you're doing activities with people that are in your community. I agree with my fellow commissioners on all their input. I definitely agree on keeping it natural, keeping it with the integrity of Malibu. I think one thing that I am struggling with, I think my first challenge, I have a problem with the feasibility of this. I think the first thing for me, just how I work in my business, is what's possible. First to say what's possible, and then to kind of go backwards from that, to see what the restrictions are for each lot. And then we've heard some really, really great input. Ed had great input. I know there's been other council members that had really good input. And I think taking the concepts of what you can do on the property and what's affordable is really important, because I have a hard time making decisions if I'm in a budget and I'm trying to figure out what to do. It helps to know, hey, this is going to be really expensive to do an underground parking lot. That is really helpful, because then I think you can take this whole laundry list of ideas that all of us have that live here, whether it's bocce or tennis or swimming pools or fields. We all have so much stuff that I feel like we all want to be incorporated into the place we love. And I think that if we could have a list of those things and then look at it as more of a menu to say that, well, this lot is going to be challenging to do an underground parking lot. This lot might be perfect for a parking lot. Nobody wants a parking lot. But I think to say which property it's going to be the most affordable, because we do have a challenge with trying to figure out how to push this through. Clearly it's taken many, many years of getting to this point. So I think that being able to look at it and say, out of all this land, out of all these acres, what fits each space based on affordability and practicality, so that we're not coming up with these great ideas of putting a pool somewhere and then being like, oh, geez, that's the most expensive lot to put in a pool. So for me, I think that's my biggest challenge when I look at this, is just saying, I think a lot of times land speaks for itself. It says what it wants in that area. And so if you kind of listen to it, certain parts of these lots might be more, have the ability to facilitate what we all want. So I think kind of going in a backwards way or forwards way, I know that Ed mentioned that we're going about it. I don't necessarily agree with the cost being the primary focus, because I do think that when you come up with a great plan, it's easier to sell to your community. And so I don't necessarily think fundraising would be the first idea, but I do like the idea of coming up with a great idea. But I think that to spend years coming up with an idea and then finding out that idea is going to be way more expensive. And I've personally done that myself. So I can say that that's one of those things that, sometimes in hindsight, you're like, I wish I knew that. So I think that going through that would make the most sense to me. to me, that is out of everything that everyone said, that's the one thing that I'm struggling with. I like income producing. I like being self-sufficient. So I don't like a tow yard idea, but I do like the idea of us being able to pay for the things that we're creating here. So I do think that coming up with where that we should make money, I think that that's a valid point. And from what I've learned from these meetings is that the tow yard is one thing that can produce some income. And so I do like to be able to figure out how we incorporate that. I think I'm over my time.
You're great. Thanks, Micah. That was great. Thanks. Yep.
First of all, thank you, Mary Ann, and Lynn, Kristen, and staff who created this, because now we're moving forward. We don't even have to agree. I love that Pat came up with an alternative drawing. I'm like, that looks just right for Heather Clef. And I want to back up. Because part of what Malibu is accepting that we don't have all the amenities that other cities have. We are willing, say we are, to give that up to keep Malibu, so that it's rural. And I really want to talk about Aoki. I got to focus first on Triangle. Triangle has to have a certain, I think, 35 parking spaces to fit there. Look at it. It's a desert. And yet that's what Malibu says. It should be something welcoming. It should be a garden. It should have trees. Maybe we can still have electric trolleys, but as John Mazza said, that we tried trolleys once before and it wasn't economic. I don't know if it's going to be. It'd be a great idea to have trolleys and let people take them instead of circling around and parking illegally, and then we tow them, but we make money if we tow them. Okay. But back to Aoki. Right in front of City Hall, it's in kind of an urban, but it's surrounded, and we could put a soccer field in there inexpensively, remembering that we're still paying off the debt we've incurred. I don't know where the money's going to come for all this stuff. The two things that I kept hearing for recreational opportunities, there was two major things. Families with kids wanted soccer because the ones at Bluff Park aren't big enough, apparently. Okay, but the second thing was a swimming pool. We're going to have this big, beautiful pool up at the high school, 50-meter pool. That's great. What do we not have in central or eastern Malibu? We've got a lot of ball fields at Bluff Park. Oh, we don't have much else. We got a senior center right here. It's not very big. Do we really need a community center? It would be nice. Draw people together. I get it. Or do we want open space instead? So for Aoki, I really like the idea of putting a pool in. It solves that water issue for fire. You have that. You have a soccer field there. And, we've talked about walking paths. One thing I've been pushing and gone to Parks and Rec Commission, we don't have a dog park except way up in Trancas. It might as well be on the moon. And is there room for one here in land that's not being used? But I think we want to keep this as rural looking as possible. I'd love it if we had a pool without some big locker room thing. I don't know if that's possible, maybe not. And then we'll go to Heathercliff. Heathercliff, we could install another regulation soccer field first, inexpensively, and a soccer field keeps things looking pretty good. because you don't need a big structure. Having a concession stand? No, you don't need a concession stand. Let's try to minimize what we do. Wade talked about what's going to happen for the future generations. If we build out all this land, there's no more rural Malibu, or it's diminished considerably. So while we look at all the opportunities for buildings, there's an opportunity of not building. And I think that has got to drive what we're doing, give equal balance to it, so that as we move forward, people come and they go, I like this place. I'd like to go to the Triangle Lot and walk around. And that's it.
Thanks, Scott. All right, so I think we got your guys' comments, and then we're going to go to Parks Commission. I wonder though when we should do questions, because I'm pretty sure that I have a lot of questions. We'll do you guys next, and then questions.
Okay, I wanted to answer one question I've heard a lot about the pool and using the high school pool. The problem is that you can't use during school hours, which cuts out a huge number of hours. So for lap swimming or whatever, I just don't think that's feasible. I do think we need another pool. I'd like to echo a lot of the comments I just heard. I think that Malibu is a special place. It's not like every suburb. We have recreational opportunities that nobody else has. We have the ocean, the beach, the mountains, mountain biking, hiking trails, horseback riding. I don't think young families aren't moving here because we don't have recreation. I think the cost of housing is why they're not moving here. I raised a child and moved here when he was 6, and he's just had a very rich life of what we have. All that being said, I've been on Parks and Rec for a long time. I hear the request for for what we need. I just would like to see the overarching feelings of we need to look at solar power, water storage at all these places, maintaining habitat. No one has talked about wildlife corridors, especially in Heathercliff. There's a lot of wildlife that moves through Point Doom. When I left here the last time we had a meeting, I saw 2 coyotes on the ILP property. We just need to leave them some space to get to Legacy Park and things. And native plants is not equivalent to native habitat. If you just make a little garden bed and put native drought-resistant plants, that is not habitat. Habitat is a much more complex thing. Maybe keeping the local streams, maybe maintaining a water feature where when it rains, that'll make seasonal water. I loved the plans that Slow Growth and the Monarch Project did for Heathercliff, where the whole back side of it is basically making it back into native habitat. And I think that would be nice for the neighborhood too, because it would buffer any noise from that community. I know I talked with Kristen a lot about this, but I really want to make sure we get specific senior input, which takes non-electronic, non-computer-based outreach. And we're talking about stuff for seniors. I'm one now. I think we need to do a better job of getting their thoughts. And I really would like to hear Shumash input. We are living on their land. We have no recognition of that anywhere in this city. And I would like to ask them how we could do that. I like specifics moving out of meetings, so I would like to propose that we do a geology study at Ioki to answer the question, pool or no pool there, because that's a big domino fall. We're going to do something at Ioki. I think most of us agree 2 soccer fields there would be great. Alicia Peak, who runs AOSO, said that would solve their soccer needs. It turns Bluffs into all baseball. I don't think we need, and she does not think we need another soccer field up at Heathercliff. So I think get the council to approve a geology study at Ioki and find if we can do a pool or no pool. And then maybe do the traffic study at Ioki after that, because it's different traffic if you have a pool and fields versus, what's there is different traffic. Clearly Heathercliff needs an ingress-egress traffic study, but again, I would solve Ioki first. I like whoever made the suggestion of posting several options on the website instead of just the one we have right now, because I do think that gives people ideas. And I think we need to reconsider bringing the art center into this discussion, because when I hear people talking about amphitheaters and sculpture demonstrations and things like that, to me that belongs at the art center, not into this. But if we don't talk about that, then people are going to keep bringing it into this. So I think at least to talk about kind of, how you best use those things. But I guess I would really like to speak up for native habitat, for wildlife. I think that's one of the real key things about Malibu, one of the reasons I moved here. And I think many people did, and I've heard a lot of that from many community members in the past couple of weeks. So I'll pass it on to Jake.
Thank you. Thank you, Halen and Marianne, for your leadership on this. I really appreciate it. The conversation obviously has been going on a long time, and I just appreciate you guys moving forward with this. Thank you, staff, for all the time you're putting in, and thanks to the community. I think everyone's trying to do a good job hearing everyone out, because this is a big deal, and this is a limited resource that we do have. My overall statement has been pretty consistent, and that is, Malibu is a beautiful place. That's why I've chosen to live here. We have thousands upon thousands of acres of open space around us, trails, bike trails. I frequently ride my mountain bike and hike these areas. I pull up and park there every day, and without a problem, because there's plenty of them. I'm at Bluffs every single weekend, and it is bursting at the seams. Our kids have nowhere to play their sports. AYSO and Little League are constantly working together closely in order to try to facilitate enough space for each other. It does not work. The kids do not have enough area to play. We've worked closely with staff in order to open up Trinkus Park to some limited soccer. It is not allowed to hold games there. We are forced to rent space from SMM USD in order to facilitate practice fields for our kids. They charge us for that. It is not welcoming. It's not easy. And this is an opportunity to fix that. And I think that we can do that in a way that also honors the city and its rural character. There are humans that live here as well, and we do have facilities that support these humans, like grocery stores and other things, but we try to do it in a tasteful way that respects the environment. And I want to continue to do that, but we need more space for the kids to play. Especially when we talk about the kids that grow. Most of them leave this community if they want to play sports. They are forced to go over the hill to find these activities. And so if we can continue to build on that, I think that overall that's something that I support. Another thing that I want to quickly touch on is prioritizing the projects. I thought was a good idea. I think that Aoki, if we can get some soccer fields in there quickly, obviously some of these others are a bigger lift. That what's being promoted at Heathercliff, I think, is a wonderful concept, but it's going to take a lot of planning and a lot of money. The third thing that I would like to introduce that I brought up before, but we really haven't had a lot of discussion about, is how do we go about doing this? Mr. Niles and Wade Major touched on this. We've got to have some type of conceptual budget. What is the limit of what we can build? We can draw pretty pictures and let architects do all kinds of things, but when it comes down to it, if it's a $300 million project, it's never getting built. One of the ways that this is done in other communities is what's called a progressive design build. If you're shaking our heads over here, familiar with this, we come up with a concept, we then get an engineer's estimate, and we find out roughly what that would cost to build. You then put an RFP out to a firm that comes in and handles the design and the construction together. That way you don't have an architect designing something that is outside of the budget and doesn't have any constraints and then passing it on to a construction firm to come up with a budget. This is a way that you can collaboratively work with a design firm and construction firm to build something that is realistic. So I would really encourage at least staff to look into that. I think that progressive design build, if you look at it, it's been very successful in other communities. And again, it gives us something that is realistic. I want to build the most beautiful facilities we can, but we've got to be able to build them. And that's very important to me. I talked about the prioritization. I do support a pool. I have competed in triathlons within the city. Trying to find pool space is virtually impossible. With the groups that are already using the pool and on top of the high school, there is not a true community pool here. Aquatics is huge in this community. One of the only sports that we're very successful at is water polo. And there's not a youth organization that currently kids do not start playing water polo within our community until they hit middle school. And that is something that we can again grow and promote. So I just thank you everyone for being a part of this process. I'm grateful for getting to be a part of this process. I think if we continue to be amenable to everybody's concerns, but also focus on trying to get something done, we will get something done, and it's be something that we all be very proud of. So, thank you.
Hi. I'd also like to thank Halen and Marianne and the staff and everybody on this commission for getting it this far. And I'm happy to be part of it from here on. I have I've read as many reports as I can, and I've listened to as many, and I've read all the comments. I'd say the good news about this, there's several good news about this. One is we've had great feedback from all the community. And it's very clear to me that there's 4 things that are both desirable, but they're very doable. One is the 2 soccer fields, 2 soccer multi-use. I don't know that we can do 3, but we can do 2. 2, a true community swimming and aquatic center. Thank you, Jake, for supporting that. As Carl Randall seemed to know, I don't know how, I was president of the Friends of Temescal Pool, and I've developed a business plan where I can tell you how to finance and run it at a profit for the city. Okay? But it's also an important fulcrum of community that this community has never known. Once they have it, they will love it, and it'll be important not just to swimmers but to people beyond that. We also need tennis and pickleball courts. It's been commented on. Swimming and tennis and pickleball are things people can do all their lives and do all their lives. And last, some sort of recreational facility. What's important about each of these is they're all fulcrums of community. We have wonderful natural resources here, but we have to create our events and our things that bring the community together for joyous reasons. Our July 4th parade is one of them. One of my comments would be, it's fine if you want to go forward right away with the soccer fields, but I think you have to decide before you go forward where everything else will be. Because you don't want to say, okay, let's put those there, and say, oops, doesn't really work. So and this doesn't mean, I think, great delay. It just means thought and action. Secondly, for the facility on Heather Cliff, unlike the Ioki land and the Triangle property, you're talking about putting in a major facility in a residential community. It's a major change for that community. We're going to have to do many hearings in that community to not only get their input, but to get community buy-in. I would recommend keeping the survey open until at least October 15th. Why? I wasn't even aware of it. I've been gone a lot this summer. A lot of people do travel in the summer. So I would opt in favor of more public input than less. The other thing you may want to be aware of is there is something called the Point Dume Community Services District, which I happen to be on the board of. When you talk about the Heather Cliff property, this could become very useful. They actually ran a community center there for decades, which is now the Malibu Elementary School. I can explain more about that later. They can also help in getting the buy-in. I would welcome the development of a pool committee with people with expertise to actually help make that happen. And in terms of the aesthetics of the building, it wasn't just the size of the building that was wrong in these drawings. It was the aesthetics of it. It should be both built into nature and enhance nature and uplift the human spirit. It can be very simple, but that should be the guiding principle. I like Joe Drummond's idea of an architectural competition, but you can see it that goes on later. And for those of you who do, I have looked in deeply into community pool building and management. A high school pool can't do it. And we worked with this in the Palisades. You can talk to people at Pally High. I don't care how big and beautiful a pool you have at the high school. A public cannot come on high school grounds during that time. It just doesn't create a community pool. And those, I think, are my main comments.
Great job. All right, thank you.
Okay, hi. Thank you everybody for all the staff work and for the commission and all their thoughtfulness and work. I really appreciate it, and I think it's becoming more of an iterative process, which I think is really helpful. So thank you, and I want to continue along these lines. I do agree with the supporting vision statement, restoration of native habitat and beautiful botanical gardens with trails. I also agree that knowledge of the geotechnical issues and what other constraints may be on these properties must be identified, because otherwise we're kind of treading water, don't know quite where we're going. So in addition, we need to try to anticipate what the future population, their needs and wishes may be. And that may modify some things that we have. I don't know, but I think it's relevant. I would say, can we consider this staged process of adding a playing field, for example, a botanical garden, say at Heathercliff, prior to completing the buildings? Maybe even the site plan would be needed, obviously, but perhaps some of the recreational use could be started in development before the buildings were actually completed, or perhaps even started. And in terms of IoT, I'd like to relay a comment by Craig Hill. Obviously, geotech would have to be done, but the thought of the playing fields have to be leveled. So could the parking possibly be undergrounded under the playing field, elevating the south end of that so that the parking would be hidden and the playing fields would be leveled? In terms of the pool, I support a pool at IOP. I would say a modest size, but I realize there's other things to consider. But also I would like to suggest a sort of hot tub, mineral springs tub, because that in fact has been shown to be therapeutic for both neurologic and musculoskeletal pain. And it's a good stress reducer as well. In terms of the triangle property, there's so much that we need to know here. It's hard to say, but I would love to see a sculpture garden there, native plants, they can grow there. Obviously, we need to have some parking, and whether we can put a building there, I think is a question, but maybe it's just a question of finances. The problem is there's so many unknowns here. In terms of the trolleys, we might consider a 2 or 3 year pilot study to see whether people use them, what routes are used, and whether it's really viable to continue that. And in terms of Heathercliff, I would love to see botanical gardens with winding paths, with tables and benches, interspersed under trees along the way, and a small, small-ish grassy lawn where people could use that for play, but also for yoga with sound immersion. And if a tea house were, people were interested in that, that might be nice as well. I support a library with a makerspace, a community room with a really good screen for presentations, and room dividers could expand this use. Other rooms might be appropriate for art, painting, and whatever activities the residents would like. I also would like to consider an EOC substation. I think we need disaster support, and I don't see any out there that's centralized, professional, and I think that should be evaluated. And of course, a bocce court. So I think this is a process which hopefully involves as many residents as possible, and critically to the Shumash.
Thank you. Gosh, everybody, y'all did great. We're not even at 7 o'clock. So I think we move into the question and answer portion and try to get some answers. I heard loud and clear. I think we've got a very good direction. I feel like I actually am very, very clear after this. I'm appreciative and grateful that we have clear direction. I've heard that people are okay with soccer fields, regulation size soccer fields. I've heard that that's okay at Ioki, which sounds like we're all in agreement on that. I think we have to look into what Micah said, which is like, we can all have these wish lists, but we have to work backwards into it. And Assistant City Manager Smith, Marianne, and I, and Kristen, we talked about that today, which, like, process. We have to know, how to afford this stuff, work backwards into it. So I want to hear more from my ad hoc. I know that with soccer fields, you need a bathroom. It's not just soccer fields. Then you need parking. It's not just parking, you need grading. I hear that nobody wants to see parking. I don't want to see parking. I've heard underground parking, which sounds extremely expensive to me, just being realistic. So I think from there, I've got some direction. I've heard we all want a pool. I've heard mostly people are supportive of it at Ioki. I've heard that people don't want a tow yard or maintenance yard, but I have also heard that it is nice to make money off of some of our assets to pay for this. I also do believe that the pool is going to take some time if we decide to put it here at Ioki. It's going to take time to study that. And so what if we considered a temporary tow yard or maintenance yard there while we're studying it for a pool? That's something that Pat's shaking her head no. Okay, well with that I'm gonna pass it over to Marianne. I like basketball courts, and I heard tennis courts. I heard a lot, but I think that we have to really keep it narrow for at least right now.
Yeah, I think all three properties we're going to have some type of phased development on it. That we're not going to get everything on every parcel, and it's just going to be one day it's there, and the next day we're building every single element. So I think considering very much supportive of getting the 2 soccer fields under construction, under review and such at the IOP lot with the parking and restroom facility, storage facility for that aspect, and some type of walking path. I think that's really important that people are able to just enjoy a stroll and have it be something that's complementary to Legacy Park. I think kind of Legacy Park is our template, good, bad. I know there's a lot of feelings about Legacy Park, but it is the park we have. And so I think that as we continue building things, that we make sure that we have cohesiveness between all the different facilities in this area. And we can make improvements to the landscape. Oh, Linda Gibbs is already gone. I just want to compliment her. I believe that I believe that some of her property actually didn't burn in the Woolsey fire because of the vegetation management that she employed on it. So we've got it proven on a residential piece of property how you can make sure that your soils and your vegetation and everything works together, and it actually can be resilient and fire protective. So I absolutely am excited about having that incorporated into any of the lands and the buildings. The buildings are going to take care of themselves as far as their requirements for construction. The building code is going to dictate that they have certain elements in it. And, solar and fire protection and all those things are automatic in the building code. I do like the suggestions for a more rural feeling of the buildings. the architects came up with a dream, and we moved forward with showing that to the community. And it's very clear the community and everybody would like to see something that is more in keeping with our rural nature and our vision and mission statement. So I think that's great. Kristen, there was a comment whether or not we may need an actual gym facility. I know right now we have a joint use with the high school or with the school district on use of that. But is it similar to the use like with the pool that we're limited on our access to that? If you could explain kind of the joint use that we have with the school district, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, that is correct. The Community Services Department in the city has a master facility use agreement, and we get kind of third dibs on facilities at the high school, middle school. And you're correct. The gym facility is limited use to us. It's very expensive. We do run a program regularly for adult basketball or open gym. And then we use the gym facility for our basketball league during the winter season. And we use it during summer camps, volleyball, those sorts of things, but that's kind of it. So you are correct, and it's very limited time. The time is, if we're lucky at 5 o'clock, but usually, till 8 o'clock.
Okay. With the basketball, my son did basketball for a lot of years, and it was really actually popular in the community, but there was never anywhere to practice. So we were all clamoring. Thank you, coach. Did you coach? Oh my goodness. Okay. So it was just kind of like the same thing with soccer, right? We have this league. It's all the kids. I see all the parents. We're all hanging out Friday night, and then we're clamoring for practice. So do you see there a need for like a basketball court somewhere outside of the gym in the school?
That's always helpful. We coordinate with the school district to get facility use at the elementary schools. There's the basketball hoops aren't always regulation size, so that's something we have to contend with. As you know, the high school's under construction, so we're in the process at this moment figuring out how we're going to run our league this year because of all the construction that's happening.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, and then one more thing, sorry. And I think just on the Heathercliff lot, and I've heard that there isn't a lot of excitement for a large field space there. So I think my question would be, should we consider maybe a smaller field space and then fill in with other court type things, more outdoor basketball courts or tennis courts, pickleball, something like that in that space? So I kind of would like some feedback of what people think on that.
I just have two questions. One, I would like either Kristen or the council to answer, would this change the gym use if we take over the school system, if we separate it? Or it would still be school hours, basically, that's the issue, right?
Yeah, I would expect the new school district to also put restrictions on access during school hours. And they will still also have their programs that they're going to be running. So I wouldn't see a major change in that. The cost might be different.
And the amiability of working together, which I've heard is an issue. And I know Georgia brought up at one of our meetings that we have private tennis courts near this building, and that the owner of those was perhaps interested in working with the city, because it just would be a lot easier to take existing facilities and set them up for pickleball, or maybe the city works with them somehow to add those courts. Yeah. It's a lot quicker that way.
Yeah, I think anytime that there's community, private or public facilities that are out there. I mean, the high school also has tennis courts, same kind of thing. Working with the district, getting those rehab to proper condition and having access to them. If there's private courts that are available, then it would be great to work out some type of a thing, and that saves us having to build it. But again, it comes to how much access is going to be available, what can the community expect as far as availability.
It'd be nice for the city to explore it.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, more questions for staff?
Yep.
Great.
Do you have a mic? want to say out loud?
I will soon have the mic.
Okay.
Thank you. Halen, you said there was, I think you said in a conflicting statement where there was agreement to go ahead with 2 soccer fields at Aoki, and yet we wanted a pool. But I think we need to know 2 things from staff, maybe you know it now. One, I think before we can go anywhere, we need to know the geology. Is a pool even there allowable because of geology? If it's not, changes the dynamic. Secondly, do we need a parking study up at Heathercliff? Because if we can't resolve that again could change everything.
Yeah. Well, I think we have 2 different types of parking issues. So we've got a parking obligation because of the monies that were used from the county and Metro. So there's an expectation from them of an obligation of a certain amount of spaces. I believe at Heathercliff we're around 200 spaces. The Triangle lot about 100 spaces, and the Aoki lot about 100 spaces. But they can be co-used by users of the facilities. Correct? So.
Excuse me, what I meant, it's not a parking study, it's a traffic study.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember you guys were talking about there was this real problem getting out of there.
Yeah.
And just at Heathercliff,
Yeah.
and if that constrains what we can do there, then we are rethinking everything.
And I will say that that's probably the biggest reason why I wanted Parks and Rec Commission to be involved in this was the ingress and egress at Heathercliff was one of my biggest concerns. So really wanted to hear you guys opine on your public works brain as far as that goes.
And I think to that point, I think we got direction, right? So we have to study this. I think, because I would love a goal for council for us to have a recommendation at least, and then we can continue discussion. But the goal is to study what we can and cannot do. So feasibility, like we talked about today in our meeting, right? We work backwards into a traffic study or an EIR, like whatever. Can we do a pool at Aoki? Can we do soccer at Aoki? So let's refocus at Aoki. Traffic, that's all incorporated into it. And from there, we get money from council, right? And we move forward with that. I think that's what I'm hearing. Because all of these questions we need answers to. Wade, Micah?
I just had two other quick points that occurred to me. So one is, and it has been suggested that there be a library annex at Heathercliff, and there's a giant pile of money that's associated with anything related to the library. So that's a potential source that mitigates. I don't know that would be tied to even how big such a thing needs to be. It could even be an annex that's a part of the community center. I don't know. I'll leave it to others in the community to figure that out. But that's money that's on the table. Another question for staff. We obviously want to revisit the performing arts concept at some point and some other place. That's a revenue generator. If you find someone to operate that and you bring talent here and you have, concerts and whatnot, that is a known revenue generator for every community that has any kind of performing arts center. Is it possible to bring that back into the conversation as something that could generate money to enable some of these other projects to happen more closely to the way they're envisioned?
And then to ask another question, that the Performing Arts Center at the high school is the same master feasible, so we can't go in there. I just want to reiterate to the public, we can't go into the new public Performing Arts Center at the high school and the public. Okay, so we're going to talk about the La Paz property, Performing Arts.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be the La Paz property. I mean, it's been suggested even that there might be a way of turning the vacant court building into some kind of performing arts thing.
Yeah.
But regardless, that's a conversation that's a revenue generator.
I don't know. Is it?
Any performing arts center is going to generate revenue.
I was also thinking, just to get complicated, what if we took that Performing Arts Center that we abandoned and put it back on the table, like you're talking about at La Paz, and made that the multi-generational center? So therefore, you have we're kind of moving away from Heathercliff for now while we're studying things. Because we already went pretty far down for buildings there. I know, sorry, twist in the plot. And then you had a theater in there, you had your stage for the senior center could go into there. And then they're near a pool, they're near the restaurants, you know. That was just...
I mean, because right now we're talking about 3 properties and we're saying, well, how do we make these 3 properties pay for themselves? It's easier if you sort of expand the conversation again and say, okay, well, how do we find some other revenue generating source to help pay for these 3 properties? If we just limit it to these 3 properties, we're going to have a harder time figuring that out.
I have a question about, just my brain was just thinking about, do the parking structures have to be structures? Do you know, does it have to be concrete? Can it be DG? One thing I really don't like are just these harsh parking lots. And if we could create, first of all, it saves a ton of money not doing traditional parking lots. And it keeps it a little more, rural looking too, just as a thought of.
Well, I will say that when they did Lumberyard, they tried DG and they ended up trading it out for the bricks that are out there. So, I think that's, a public works and people with more experience to make sure that the drainage is there and that we don't end up with mud or slick or something like that. We want to make sure that it's resilient. So I think,
In terms of couple of things, just practicalities and revenue generation. For the pool and the tennis courts, for the pool you're going to need 12 to 15 lanes, not 8. Just go to Calabasas Tennis and Swim on the weekends. I'll go into detail later. But that's doable. And furthermore, if you do that, you will be the pool center will be self-funding, if not a revenue generator. Same with the tennis courts. The tennis courts, you're going to need 4. The tennis courts are combined pickleball courts. You're not going to need 1 or 2. But again, it's doable. The theater, cinema, there are ways to make it more profitable. It can be challenging, but we can talk about that later. So as you go forward, from what I see on the Aoki property, from a practical conceptual basis, it would be better to have the pool there. Why? Because traffic-wise and otherwise, it makes more sense. Secondly, when you have a pool, it generates revenue for surrounding businesses. It would help the businesses which are heavily located there. I don't know whether you can do that. I also sympathize with the need of the parents to have 2 soccer fields and have them sooner as opposed to later. But that's why I say, before you go ahead and actually build the soccer fields, it does take a long time. Think about all of this and plan realistically. I also like the idea of this progressive development. You do have to come up, it's like if you're renovating a house. You don't want to renovate one room without thinking about what you're doing with the others. Get your whole plan together, then proceed to it. So that's my thought. Also, by the way, I was recently in England where you go to freshairsculpture.com. It was a show primarily for education for the students with beautiful gardens where they have an art curation committee where they bring in art that people can both buy and bring the kids in for education. So we could easily do that somewhere here in Melbourne.
I just say, practically speaking, we start with Aoki, Jujio, but I do think with the art center, because I again keep hearing about, well, the art center could do this and this and this, which could replace some of the things we're talking about in Heathercliff. So I don't know that we're actually going to build it right now, but it seems like more like the thought of what could go there. But I think Aoki, pool or no pool, right? That's like the first question you need to answer.
Yeah. Sorry I forgot one other thing. The ingress and egress on Heathercliff is a serious problem. You cannot put that can you put that extra traffic on the Heathercliff traffic light? If not, do you have to have another traffic light? A little intense.
Yeah, I totally agree, Jane. We definitely have to study a lot of this. So Peter, did you want to say something? I think it's fine.
Okay.
I think so.
Come to the mic though, please. And we're gonna limit you to.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of the Art Center, I'm the chairman of the Art Commission. We have looked at courthouse. The courthouse would be a winner if we could get it. It's difficult to renovate because it has really thick walls. It has a lot of small rooms. In my view, it is adaptable. We have been in touch with the city, and it never went anywhere. We did try this. There's a plan right now. You're familiar with Parcel C?
La Paz, also known as, right.
There's a plan right now that one group wants to put low-income housing there, as I understand it. There's another, we could conceivably put an art center there, and then we have a source of, allegedly, private funding, which would rent the land from the city, and they would pay to build it, and they would maintain the
If you know these people, have them reach out to us, the people that want to pay for things. Like, send them a video of this and have them call us.
So if I could just throw one thing out
Peter,
really
thank
quickly.
you very much. Appreciate that.
I had a conversation with, I hope he's not going to get mad that I named him, but I did have a conversation with Zach in Horvath's office about this last year, and suggesting that when the courts finally get around to offloading that, the county is going to buy it and then would come to us and say, what do you want to do with it? So when that process resolves itself, I would say if that is the ideal spot for you, then I would say we'd be ready to jump right in front of, whoever is running District 3 at that point. Who knows how many years it's going to take, but that we should jump in with the plan, be prepared to say, yes, let's collaborate, let's get our theater complex in there, let's get our performing arts center in there.
Right. So we've all had conversations with the state. We all want the courthouse. We have no control over when they're going to release it, but you will all know about it.
As soon as we know about it.
I was just going to add also, there have been talks about a fire station in that area also, because Station 88 has outgrown theirs. Well, so the courthouse, the county property, the library, the courthouse, Water District 29, fire department, the substation, there's a lot of exciting things that could happen. So I think there's more conversations to be had. The last thing I heard about the courts is they are not looking to let go of that. Everything changes, but the last conversation I had was that they are still interested in maintaining control of that for the time being. So I think we concentrate on what properties we do control right now, and we should focus on that. And if something happens, then we can look at something else. So I think we want to try and wrap it up.
Yeah, I agree. I'll be
I have a question. Okay. So Kelly
Yeah.
and then Georgia.
Okay, great. I just wanted to wrap up by emphasizing some of the sort of a cautionary note that has come up a few times, in that the context here is that this has been an ongoing conversation for decades, fair to say. I think a couple people mentioned that we should really be aware of that oftentimes all these ideas are on the table and then they just continue to be on the table, and then the council changes hands, and there's, So with that in mind, what I wanted to propose, it sounds like the agreement from the two commissions, the priorities, the Aoki lot, the fields, there's no controversy over the soccer fields. So I would like to propose that in the timeline that we be aggressive as it relates to the soccer fields. And the related point to that is that, in my experience on many projects, once something starts, there's a momentum behind it. So once we get fields in place, we can consider that the cornerstone for the community lands project overall. And I think a lot of this would start to fall, the dominoes would start to fall. So I just would recommend that we really try to focus the community on that as a goal, realistic goal, aggressive timeline, realistic funding, all those pieces. And I would also ask the staff, when you lay out the timeline, that you include all these studies, geo study, the traffic study, so that everyone can understand permitting. And then lastly, just a random question that came up with the Heathercliff lot in the center. For the community service director, is there demand in the community for dance? So would a dance floor be something that there'd be interest in, you think, if we build it, they'll come kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. We worked with the Arts Commission and Chairperson Jones, and that was a high priority. People really want dance. Our seniors love dance. We have classes that we offer right here on our bamboo floor, but I think that's a definite need.
Listen, Georgia, and then Georgia, you have Mike, and then that's then we're done. Okay, so Georgia, Jake, Tiffany, and then we're good.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a perfect segue, Kristen. Thank you. I was just going to say that the community room at the proposed building at Heathercliff, if properly acoustically constructed, could be used for concerts and could be used as also a dance floor. I mean, I think it really has multiple uses. It's not a big amphitheater, but it doesn't have to be to enjoy, these activities. Also, Joe, I would like to know, can you project a reasonable time for the geotech, for the constraints on these properties so we can know what's possible?
Yeah, I think with regards to geotechnical analysis, geological analysis, that's something that we would need to get proposals for, get allocation from council for the money, and tell the engineer to go forward and do the analysis. It's not a long, drawn-out process, but it's something we need to do for IoT for sure.
Okay.
So quick. I mean, it's relatively quick, but it's gonna.
That's.
Well, what I've heard so far, and to answer your question, yes, we can do it. It's not a long process, but.
It seemed like that's what you were suggesting or needed to do, and I totally agree. And I don't know whether this could be realistic, but could the properties be divided into sections? Or, for example, the pool at Aoki would be separate from the playing fields. I mean, the soccer fields might be easy and less expensive to install, so maybe that could go forward. A botanical garden out at Heathercliff could be installed, and the building perhaps come a little bit later. Yeah, phased, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Pool at the back, maybe.
Yeah.
Tree,
I don't know what that parking lot right there.
That's basketball court.
Well, that's basketball. Okay.
I mean, did you get this? Like, you get the images?
I did.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. And then, so the question would be, could it be phased? And then also, I haven't heard very much, and I meant to ask this before, about accommodations for bicycles. So that's just something that could be. Thank you, everybody.
I can talk about it.
Okay. Sorry. I don't know if we need agreement on this, but the question is, can we get an engineer's estimate on the concepts? I think that having that is going to give you a baseline. Whether you put a pool here or wherever you put it, you're going to know. A pool's about $1 million, 1.2, 1.5. A building of this size is about this much. You break it down into a square foot price. So that's one thing that I would really like staff to see. Again, these are concepts, but you then have the building blocks, and you know whether or not you're dreaming, you're in reality, and where we're going. Thanks.
I want to just jump in, Jake, that's a great point. So the preliminary cost estimates for both of these concepts that started this conversation, I think Kristen has them right there. For Aoki, I want to say it was 5.9 or 6 million, roughly. And for Heathercliff, 63 million.
And that was without the pool. So let's detail the 6 million, 5 something, whatever it is. That's just for the 2 regulation soccer fields and a bathroom and parking. And the paths.
And the yard.
Oh, so that was in there. And I know this is super unpopular and we all don't want it, but if that went there just temporarily until we studied the pool, because I hear consensus on the pool being at Ioki, just to kind of, because to save money for the city, I believe I heard we could make $500,000 and save how much on the maintenance yard?
Approximately 108,000.
Right. Annually, so that we could maybe make 500 grand. And then also for the community, everybody wants these cars towed, right? Like we're always like, tow the cars, but I know these tow companies they don't want to tow them because we don't tow all year round because of the school. And I mean, just maybe temporarily we could consider.
I told you I shouldn't cost anything to install.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just blacktop, and then until the pool, we get a little bit more. We start making some money. A phase 1, phase 2 type of thing. Tiffany had kind of makes sense, I guess. Tiffany, and then.
I have a question about the triangle lot, and I love the ideas of creating that beautiful gateway with the trees as a focal point, but I really think before we proceed, we need to find out how we can ultimately become responsible for caring for those trees, because my understanding is that they're viewed as Caltrans vegetation and that they periodically prune. So we need to get their permission that we can take over that and really beautify that space without them coming in with their Roundup and whatever they're doing.
Are you talking about the triangle lot? Those 2 palm trees that
and there's also
3
the eucalyptus tree.
Okay.
There's 6 trees there that are old that really need some love and attention, but to go in there and create something beautiful and have them come with their hazmat suits and spray the Roundup like they typically do on the medial strips, that would be a crime. So we better redefine that before we proceed.
And it's really, I wrote a little article about being a Tree City USA, and the city manager and the staff have already looked into it. And so this is the sort of thing that being a Tree City designated would do that. Like, they would look at the trees and do, I think, audits of the trees and help maintain the trees. But are you looking to then talk about the triangle lot? And do you want to phase that out? Like plant the triangle lot?
No, I think we should care for those trees and really think of other native plants for around it to really improve, to build on that. But I just think that we better get Caltrans to sign off and transfer it over to us so that we don't have any surprises over who's doing what.
Okay. How does everybody feel about all of this? Because I feel pretty good. I feel clear. Marianne and I have direction to go back to council, staff to suggest, recommend. Do you feel clear?
I think it's been a really healthy conversation. I think the clearest direction I have for next steps towards implementing is involving Ioki, further geotech and geology analysis. What I'd like to know is there a direction on when we go to council for traffic analysis at Heather Cliff, ingress and egress analysis? I don't know if that's clarity yet or not.
Doesn't it depend on how you're using it though, because you have to see how many people are looking at it.
I think we can do a traffic study. We can give them projected, like with the building, the way we've identified it and the different programming they can do. But it's probably going to represent, if anything, will probably go down.
Correct. If you go for the biggest amount of use, it'll be the largest trip drainage. So that's clarity. If that's clarity, I have that very clear, Kristen and I.
So yeah, what I hear is Ioki, yes. I'm hearing phased, move forward with soccer, fast track, but study also the geology for the possibility of the pool being located there. So we can either continue to move forward with that idea or eliminate it and say that probably Heather Cliff is going to be the location for that.
I would agree. Thank you for adding that clarity. And the other thing that I heard from is the integration of native species protecting the habitat into the design of all of these sites is of the utmost importance. And it like reflects our values and our mission. And that is something that'll come through later designs. But that's been very clear. I've just been trying to listen and observe. And that's something I think everyone here cares about. In the community, I hear all the time. I did hear later, after we did this analysis, obviously the survey should stay up a little longer. I think people need time to continue to have their voice heard.
Yeah.
Jake, progressive design build process, we have to add that in our code. I identified that a few months ago, we're doing it. So that is a tool we need to add into the city code. So, okay, I think that was it. And honestly, really, I have clear direction. Kristen's captured it. It's on video. It's been great getting to know all of you and hear
Can I just have a question on that? I think I like that approach of focusing on the IOP property first. It makes sense. I love the drawing you just brought over here where you've got the 2 soccer fields, you've got the pool up above. But if you go this way and you look into it, it's got to be a pool that is big enough to make sense.
Well, I think that's part of kind of studying that whole area. It's exactly what are the limitations for opportunities.
And to be honest, this was, I think, Pat Healy's slow growth. Jane, I don't know if you saw it, but the public comment, that was this design. So Pat sent it in. So if you want to look at it with Georgia, that's where it is. And I wanted to thank everybody for their patience and time and input. And this is a great book. I'm going to share it. Thanks, Peter. It's beautiful landscape. We'll look through it. I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you guys for everything. And go out and spread the news amongst all your friends and get them to take the survey. And, just what we keep hearing is, I didn't know about this, I didn't know about this, I didn't know about this. So everything, you guys tell 10 people and they 10 tell people and 10 take. Let's get this out there.